Hello, I'm Sandy. For those of you who don't know who I am, nice to meet you. And for those of you who do know who I am, nice to see you again. Over the summer of 2024, I participated in the Inkfort Press Publishing Derby. This is a friendly competition to see who can sell the most books when we all start from scratch. Book covers with titles and fake pen names are designed for the derby. Participants rank which covers they like the best, then they're doled out so each participant receives a different cover. As is the nature with ADHD, I missed the deadline for rankings by a day. Luckily, I was still given a cover. Yeah, sure, it was in my top 10 that I quickly selected without much thought, but looking at it, I knew I got it because no one else wanted it. I had no idea what to do with that cover. After a couple walks, a story started to form, and soon I was creating a world with depth, rich history, new language, and interesting characters. For 2 months, all I could think about was this book. It was an escape from reality for me, and I loved working on it. I could visualize it, feel it, almost like I was living in that world. Fascinating pieces fell into place, connections were made, and I had a full, well thought out story I was proud of. I was excited to share it with others. The anonymous beta reader part of the derby came up, and I was looking forward to getting feedback. Well, I got it! Only one person chose to beta read my book, and the notes I got from them were devastating. They didn't finish reading my book and basically told me my book was unreadable. I didn't feel the notes were constructive, and I was left doubting everything about my writing. After the hurt softened, I continued to edit and rework my book. I reminded myself that it's just one person's opinion and my writing may not be their cup of tea. I also reflected on what I was told. I understand why some people won't like my book and may even find it offensive. My book is not an easy read. It is a horror meant for adults, not a feel-good story. It will make people feel uncomfortable and challenge beliefs, and it's loaded with political and social commentary. The aspect the beta reader was most taken aback by was the sexual assaults in the book. I'm a fan of horror, and to me, what I put in it, I felt was in line with other horror books I've read and what can be found in news articles and gritty TV series or rated R movies. Granted, news articles have content warnings, but I don't recall seeing content warnings on the horror books I've read or on rated R movies. Everything I put into my book is intentional. It's there because I feel it fits the narrative, helps to build the world, adds to the characters, or furthers the plot. This includes the scenes with the sexual assaults. They're there for a reason. Even throwaway lines have meaning, but you may not understand that meaning until later on. Again, this is a challenging read and it requires focus and patience. I'd ask that if you start the journey of reading my book, to stick with it to the end before making judgments because not everything will make sense until the end. Another reflection I had is, I get it. My writing style may be difficult to understand without knowing the inflections of the voices. This is something I struggle with when writing for others. So what better way to experience my book than to hear it the way that I do? The art of storytelling is an underrated source of entertainment, and I'd love nothing more than to perform my story for you. But I must warn you, I can't do all the accents in the book, so I'm not going to do any of them. My book hasn't been professionally or even unprofessionally edited. I'm the only one who's worked on it, so I know there's a lot of little, possibly even big mistakes I didn't catch. Sorry about that. I'm going to try my best to distinguish the dialogue between the different characters and the narrative. It may help to follow along with your copy of my book, which can be purchased on Amazon using the link in the description box below. I love the world I built and the potential it has to expand. Please join me in sharing the experience of exploring the world of necroplasm. Yes, I know, it's a ridiculous title. I get it. Necroplasm, Chapter 1, New Possible Future. You brought a human into the council chamber? Vincent's audacity astonished me. While humans coming into the chamber wasn't strictly prohibited, it was uncommon and, generally speaking, permission from council members was required. But I think part of my surprise was it was Vincent who did it. He was very meek, and doing something this bold was out of character for him. Before he could respond, Danielle spoke up. Minuet, it's all right. I asked him to be here. Since she oversaw security, her permission held a lot of value. However, I was still perturbed. You should have informed the rest of us before allowing him to bring that human here. Vincent said, Her name is Stephanie, and I have a really good reason for— Hush! I snapped. Vincent appeared to be embarrassed by my scolding of him. He quickly brushed back the white streak in his hair he often let hang in front of his face. The human, Stephanie, a simple woman with no features that would catch an eye, took a step behind him. I could hear her heartbeat increase. My intention wasn't to frighten the poor thing. I turned back to Danielle. The celebration of treaties begins in a few nights. Now is not the time to bring a human before us. Actually, Minuet, I felt what Vincent had to say would be important for the council to hear before the celebration. This could change everything. Danielle often looked confident. Her background is from India. Mine is from Norway. The feature that ties all of us together is the white in our hair. Hers framed her face in stark contrast to the rest of her dark hair and eyes. In them, I noticed she seemed strangely uneasy. All right, Vincent, explain yourself. This is Stephanie. I came across her research on artificial blood 4 months ago. I applied it to my research and had a breakthrough on my project. You mean— Yes, Vincent said. We're close to finding a substitute for human blood. I felt the wind taken out of me. That does change everything. I sat back, allowing this information to sink in. Glancing around at the other council members, I could see they were doing the same. Vampires have required human blood for all of our existence to survive. No other animal, no known substitute has ever maintained our life force. 4 months ago, she became an acolyte that fast and she's accepting of everything she's come across? And Stephanie is of unusual talent and intellect. She knew that creatures like us were a possibility, even likely, given what she's learned from her research. I believe her scientific curiosity helped her to accept the reality of vampires. Keeping our presence hidden from humans had been vital to our survival. For a human to be made aware of us and brought into our society of acolytes, it takes a lot of investigation and testing. We were using a system Danielle set up for vetting humans. I shot her a quizzical glance. Danielle told me she passed everything and her test scores were quite high. I got up from my seat to approach this human. The eyes of the other council members were on me. While we don't have a leader, at least not in the sense humans would think of one, I was aware my opinion held the most influence. Despite all the computers, screens, and electronics filling the room with noise, my footfall echoed on the tile floor. Operations were moved to this building in Ottawa, Canada, 60 years previously. The location was ideal for our future plans, and the architecture had remnants of when settlers first arrived to this land, a style fondly remembered by many of us. The modern buildings humans put up lack character, uniqueness, and are built as cheaply as possible, removing all embellishments. I enjoyed going to the most untouched parts of the building to feel the texture of the stone under my hands and breathe in its scent. No matter how often the stone had been washed, hints of its original time permeated the surrounding air. I saw a hopeful expression on Vincent's face. He was enthusiastic about his research. Also, I knew he was trying to impress me. His energy reached out to me, but I remained focused on the human. I asked her, Stephanie, as part of the socializing, I take it you've witnessed a full feeding? I did, she replied. And you've submitted to a passive feeding? I have. What did you think of them? Her heartbeat had calmed, but nervousness continued to surround her. I found it fascinating. I was relieved to learn there's no side effects with a passive feeding. The last thing I want is to turn into one of you, she shrugged. Why's that? Oh, sorry, I don't mean to offend. It's just that the full feeding, taking a life, I don't think that's something I could do. You take life all the time when you eat. Yes, I get that, but I'm not a predator. I've never had to kill my food. I guess it's different for you being born predators. Is that how you see us? As predators? Well, yes. That's how I could accept what you do. Humans can fall prey to many animals. It doesn't make those animals evil. At least, so long as I'm not the meal. She gave me an apprehensive smile, no doubt hoping I wasn't about to make her my meal. You swore off going back to your own kind just like that? Realize once you've become part of our society, you can't go back to your old life. You're required to sever all ties, including family. I don't have family. My focus has been my research, which hasn't left much room for friendships. And, well, I have a hard time connecting with people and find it difficult to function in that society. With the opportunities, equipment, and advanced knowledge you have, how could I not want to be part of this society? Your people have been more open to me than mine ever have. Your people? Um, sorry, I mean, we're different species, I cut her off. Humans have more in common with apes than you do with us. Humans are people. Vampires are kinfolk. Acolytes are humans who serve and work with us. Yes, of course, the way kinfolk and acolytes have accepted me is unlike anything I've ever been a part of. Vampires can communicate with animals on an emotional level. Humans were too complex for us to read what they were feeling, leaving us to rely on verbal communication. However, we're very good at observing their behavior and physical responses. It's not impossible for a human to lie convincingly to us, but it's rare for that lie to go unnoticed. I studied her for any tic, any sign of disgust, any indication she was trying to deceive us. I found none. She certainly seemed accepting. I said, Vincent, you believe her work will help you accomplish your goal? I do. Continue your work. I turned from him and addressed the council members. As of this moment, nothing has changed. But we need to prepare ourselves for the possibility a substitute for human blood is close to becoming a reality. Thank you, Minuet, Vincent said to me. I'm glad you trust her. I trust you, Vincent. If you trust her, that's good enough for me. Later that night, Michael was with me in my residence. I had a penthouse that overlooked the city and the Rideau Canal. I kept my place simple, a couple pieces of furniture, an entertainment screen, but not much else. I didn't feel the need for decorations or displaying objects. Even the clothing in my closet were modest. The only thing I had in excess of were coverings for my bed. After Michael and I had finished our meal, I leaned on the balcony railing, licking the last bit of flavor from my fangs before retracting them, while taking in the scents from below. The sun would rise soon, and we would sleep for the day. Sunlight has no ill effect on us. Vampires are simply nocturnal. We avoid the daytime, especially in cities, because the noise pollution gives us headaches. When the Freedom Convoy was in town, even with our soundproofing of residence and work areas, many of us had to flee the city for our own sanity. A few of the more obnoxious occupiers just happened to go missing around then. This time of night, before the city woke, I found it peaceful. Michael joined me on the balcony after putting the remains of our food in a vacuum bag for disposal. He put his arm around me and I leaned into him. She was exquisite. You can always taste the difference with wild stock. How were you able to get a hunting permit this close to the celebration? They wanted a few more items for the ballroom. I persuaded them to let me have one if I got them one as well. Where'd you find her? She was coming off a Rideau Canal day cruise with her husband. I overheard her say they were traveling here from Spain for their 10-year anniversary. I wanted to get you something special, not from around here. People outside of Canada have this odd belief Canadians are friendly and trustworthy. I convinced them I knew of the perfect off-the-beaten-path restaurant for them to go to. It didn't take much for them to follow me. I sent her maid to the kitchen to be prepared for the celebration. She was perfect. Thank you. I'm glad you liked her. Michael's Mediterranean features were very attractive. I stroked the white in his hair located by his right temple. It was very distinct. I've never minded the white in my hair being at the top of my head and layered down, but I appreciate the look of a hard contrast in others. Vampires keep aspects of our culture and abilities from acolytes. One of the abilities we hide is when vampires have bonded romantically. We can speak telepathically to each other. What's on your mind? You seem more troubled tonight, I asked Michael. I knew him getting the hunting permit wasn't just to spoil me. He also wanted a way to distract himself from his loss. I watched the recording of the council meeting. Sorry I couldn't be there myself. Everyone involved with the celebration is pulled thin right now. He passed his hand through my hair. You know, you were a bit hard on him. Vincent is only doing what he thinks is best for our kinfolk. I know, it just caught me off guard. I knew this day would come, but the implications of what it means. Once we've exposed ourselves to the humans, there's no going back. Our way of life, the society we've built, will be changed forever. He seemed to take your reaction to heart. I think he loves you. He does. I've known for a while. So that means, yes, I love him as well. I leaned back on the railing and felt the breeze in my hair. Do you think if humans loved the same way we do, they could write songs or have influence for poetry? It seems their best art is inspired by not understanding who loves who and why. The way we connect is so much more simple. Humans would probably feel it lacks passion, but they can never comprehend the intimacy and intensity of the love we share among ourselves. When a vampire loves another, they send out an emotional signal. If the one of their desires doesn't have feelings for them, they don't notice the signal. However, if they do have feelings, they can sense it and choose if they want to respond. Michael seemed surprised by my omission. Then why haven't you responded to him? It's complicated. Complicated? How could it be complicated? He would want me as his primary. You're my primary. So, plenty of us have had relationships where one is the primary and the other is not. That's no reason not to respond. Is he in a relationship? No. He's only had casual relations since he parted ways with Danielle. What was it, 120 some odd years ago? And since then, he's been so focused on his work, I didn't think he could have room for a relationship. A while ago, I was watching him at a story gathering and I felt him reach out. I've always been fond of him, but I didn't realize how much my feelings had developed. I chose not to respond, hoping my feelings would fade. They didn't. Wait, you actively tried not to love him? It's complicated. There are things that... I let out a sigh. It's complicated. Even after all these years, I still don't understand everything you do. Of course, you don't have to respond to him. I'm just confused as to why you wouldn't. I have a feeling he would do anything to make you happy. I'm happy being with you and having casual relations. It's simple. I need simple right now. He hugged me close and stroked my hair. I know the celebration of treaties is a challenging time for you. At least kinfolk have stopped making you the center of attention for them. Well, not as much as they used to anyway. If it weren't for you, there'd be no celebration. Kinfolk want to show their appreciation. I've never wanted to be treated any different from any other kinfolk. You know that. One of the many reasons I love you is because you've never thought of me as being above everyone else. You know, connecting with Vincent could make things easier on you. He doesn't strike me as the type to love you for selfish reasons. Like me, he'd love you for you. It's more than that, I confessed. Maybe after all this is done, the celebration, his research, maybe then I'll respond. Why rush? All I want is to stay with you in this moment. This is simple. It's perfect. I just want you to be happy. I don't want you to miss the chance to explore your feelings with him. You never know when... His voice trailed off and the pain he had been carrying swelled to the surface. I kissed him all over his face and squeezed him tight. Hey, listen to me. I tried my best to soothe him. We haven't given up hope of finding out what happened to Lucas. Danielle has kinfolk working on finding him non-stop. There hasn't been a new lead in months. I keep trying to reach out to him. Raphael does the same. All we feel is emptiness. Lucas had been missing for almost 2 years. I wanted so much to tell Michael we would find him and that everything was going to be all right. But I couldn't lie to him. It wasn't uncommon for a kinfolk to go off on their own for solitude to meditate and contemplate elements of their lives, sometimes for years. However, if one were to do that, they let others know where they're going and take communication devices with them. An alert feature is on these devices that automatically sends out a signal if high levels of stress are detected. But for Lucas to seek solitude and not tell anyone? That's not something he would do. He was a social butterfly and loved being around others. Raphael was his primary relationship, and he had many other romantic connections, including with Michael. Lucas and Raphael had been planning the treaties ball for 3 years before he went missing. There was no escaping it. Lucas was dead. Our focus was trying to find out what happened to him to bring us closure. The noise of the traffic picked up. We stepped inside and closed the soundproof glass doors. I put on music that was from a time before human recordings, music we kept alive in our society. It was gentle and melodic from what is now referred to as Shanghai China. Michael had taken what remained of our meal off the bed and had put it by the door. During the day while we slept, an acolyte would be by to pick it up. We sat down on the soft furs of the bed. I reached over to hold his hands. I asked Michael, "How's Raphael handling it? He hasn't come to me." "He's closed himself off from most kinfolk. It may be good if you don't wait for him to approach you." I was Raphael's mentor. What Stephanie had said in the council chamber, that we are born vampires, isn't exactly true, but it's the truth we let humans believe. We are born human, by human parents. However, we are different. The easiest way to explain it is that there's a seed inside of some humans. If it's discovered and nurtured before puberty, they bloom into vampires. We can identify who has it by taste. Of course, now we have more modern ways of testing. When we discover a child carrying the vampire gene, we take them. If that's problematic for their family, the family is killed. That might sound tragic, but it's not. We feed the child vampire blood, which triggers changes in their bodies and minds, including becoming infertile and losing all desire to bond with humans. No one misses their families, and no one remembers their life before they were given vampire blood. When this happens, we refer to the child as a young one. While feeding on vampire blood, the child continues to eat human food and grow at human rates. Early in puberty, they white. That's when a white streak appears in their hair and indicates they're ready for human blood. Vampires have a ceremony for this time in our life cycle when we become kin. They share their first full feed with a vampire who will become their mentor. During puberty, they require human food and blood and vampire blood, with their mentor being their sole source of vampire blood. During that time, the kin and mentor form a bond that resembles the bond between a human child and parent, but not as exclusive. All vampires look after young ones and kin and provide them with educations. The mentor is meant to provide stability with the intense changes they're going through. The kin stays with their mentor, who guides them through the process, answering questions as they grow. After puberty, they can no longer digest human food. Roughly 5 years after that, they're weaned off of vampire blood. When kin are no longer reliant on vampire blood, the bond with their mentor fades. However, the mentor supports them until they've become independent members of society around the age of 50, which is when they become kinfolk. Once a kin has white, they experience a drastic slowdown in the apparent aging process compared to humans. So, a 100-year-old vampire can look the same age as a human who is in their late teens. A vampire's physical aging appearance stabilizes around the time they turn 300, at what their peak health would have been as a human. Vampires are considered young until the age of 500 and commonly referred to as children, in the same sense a 60-year-old human would call a 20-year-old a child. After 500, age is no longer a factor in anything social. We view a kinfolk who is 600 the same as we view a kinfolk who is 3,000. Similarly, those under 500 develop romantic and sexual relationships with kinfolk who are within a couple centuries of each other. While there's nothing technically wrong with a 100-year-old being with a 1,000-year-old, it would be extremely odd. But no one would bat an eye at a 700-year-old in a relationship with someone who is 4,000. During times of stress or conflict, vampires often seek out their mentor for support. My heart sat heavy that Raphael hadn't come to me yet. The pain he was feeling must have been so overwhelming that any attention to it would cause him to collapse into himself. I wanted to provide him with what little comfort I could give. Losing one of our own was a rarity, and to lose one with no knowledge as to how hadn't occurred in hundreds of years. I've tried talking to him. Of course I'll try again. I don't want to push things. When he's ready, I'm here for him. My ice blue eyes met Michael's coal black eyes. Everyone is concerned about Lucas. We all loved him in our own ways. We won't rest until we find out what happened to him. We were each other's primary for 400 years. Our relationship ebbed and flowed, grew and changed, but it was always strong. As my relationship with you became more intense, his relationship with Raphael also grew. We felt it was time to embrace others as primaries, but our feelings for each other never changed. The time I spent with him, the time I spend with you, is so precious. With the way things are changing, there's no telling what will happen after we come out to the humans. I don't want you to miss the opportunity to experience your love with Vincent. I don't think it will trouble him at all not being your primary. And who knows, that may change. We laid down on the bed and held each other close. Change, I said. That's what worries me. It worries me too. What Vincent said in the council meeting. Could it really be possible that we'll no longer need human blood? Possible? I think it's inevitable. How are the other council members handling it? Danielle is pushing harder for an aggressive takeover of humans. I think she knows with this new option, many will lean in the direction Vincent favors. If we no longer need human blood, if humans are no longer our prey, perhaps there's a chance we can coexist in our own societies. Danielle doesn't believe peaceful coexistence with humans is possible. But the thought of taking over the world, dominating over them, I don't think that's sustainable. And what would that do to us? How can our society freely develop if we have to devote so much of our resources to keeping the human population obedient? I sighed and put my hand under Michael's shirt to feel his skin. He undid the button so I could rest my head on him and listen to his heartbeat. The option I want can't go on much longer. Keeping things status quo, simple. But I'm too cognizant of reality. It's only a matter of time before the human world discovers us. Either we choose change now or it will be done to us later. The only reason we haven't gone down Danielle's route yet is because I've been delaying it. Everyone's looking to me for guidance and I have none to give. We get one chance to come out to humans. If we mess it up, both our societies will suffer. For someone who likes to keep things simple, you sure do become the center of change. Maybe that's why kinfolk turn to you. They know whatever decision you come to will be the best for most kinfolk, even if it's the one you don't want yourself. I wish it wasn't me. I know. He put his hand under my shirt and caressed my skin softly, the way he knows I like. Ever since the trials, kinfolk turn to you in times of upheaval. because of what you did. Well, it led to hundreds of years of peace. I only did what I had to for us to survive. I never wanted to be a leader. Leader, but not in the sense humans would think. No one vampire has more power than others. We're all of equal status, filling the positions in society we're best suited for. The Vampire Council is fluid. No one is voted in and no one applies for a position. An unspoken coalescing takes place where we follow the one best qualified for the tasks. Very few of us, like me, have been on the council since its creation. Most of the time, I'm content to sit back and let others take charge. But in times like this, without me wanting it or asking, they follow my lead. I have the most influence, but I don't make the decisions for others. Michael sits on the council as the head administrator of our society. Vincent is our head scientist, but has chosen not to sit on the council. He wanted to focus on what his science could do, not how it would be used. You've led us this far. I have faith in what you decide. Michael formed a smile. Besides, it makes no difference to me. Either way will be a logistical calamity. I laughed. He always finds a way to make me feel better. Let's forget about the rest of the world and just focus on now. We finished undressing ourselves and relished the textures of the fur coverings under our bodies and our skin pressing against each other. Our internal bodies are quite different from humans, but our external features remain the same, though one pleasantry retained from when we were human. Sex is purely for pleasure and an expression of intimacy. We don't have a sex drive, we don't attach shame to our desires, nor do we feel the need to sexually dominate over another. Sexual aggression and violence have not existed among vampires since the trials. We're free to explore with whoever is interested in exploring with us. Over the centuries, our techniques for our physical pleasure have expanded. And when making love with one you have a romantic bond with, the experience goes far deeper than the physical. Our minds touch and we feel the essence, or what humans would call a soul of the other. Our expressions of intimacy include taking sips of each other's blood. That is, we cut into the skin to taste, never biting through the skin. When a young one or kin feeds on a vampire, it's not in the same sense as when we feed on humans. Vampire blood is solely ingested to cause the body to change and grow into a vampire. To feed on another vampire and take their life essence is immensely taboo, even in extreme circumstances. There had been no known instances of a vampire full feeding on another. With the blackout blinds automatically drawn and the music playing, Michael and I made love until the late hours of the morning. I hope you enjoyed this snippet of my first published book. If you would like to see more of my story performance, I will be posting the rest of the chapters for my patrons at the Jack in the Box tier. Link to my patron can be found in the description box below. Please purchase my book and leave positive reviews. Not only will it help my book get out to others, but it will also make me feel better about my writing. Thank you for watching, and please do the rest of that YouTube stuff. You know what I'm talking about.